are live for
Episode
8.
Excellent.
Oh, getting so far through this. We've been at this for technically 9 weeks.
We have
8 weeks of recording.
I mean, it's always been fun.
Oh yeah, it's always fun. So you, I believe, again, we'll kick this off with you had some choice or less than choice words.
Oh yeah. So anyone who's listening who's interested in theatre and musicals and stuff like that, like I am, I'm a massive theatre buff. I absolutely adore musicals and stage work and stuff like that. It became apparent that Cameron Mackintosh, who's like this superstar producer of many of the musicals we know and love, like Phantom of the Opera, Les Miserables, Mary Poppins and stuff like that. He's done all of these great musicals and he's produced them, and he's turned around and said that trans actors aren't tenable and that they somehow undermine the integrity of classic shows. So essentially, trans actors don't belong on stage in a lot of ways.
I think that's ridiculous because I don't see how trans actors damage. Like, what do they get in the way of? Because cross-dressing and that,
I have absolutely no idea.
I was about to say, what could a trans person ruin that a straight guy in a dress couldn't?
I genuinely I genuinely don't know. But no, I will bring up what was said. It's in my archive.
Hey.
Because we have receipts. Receipts are always
take
good.
Your receipts.
Always have the receipts. So no, he says that transgender casting would damage the integrity of classic shows. And it would damage the integrity of original storylines because he considered it gimmick casting. So...
But how would it ruin the storyline? If the storyline hasn't changed, the characters haven't changed, you've just picked a trans actor. It doesn't change it.
You've just picked a trans actor who... So you've just picked an actor who just happens to be trans. Like,
yeah.
I would much prefer... I would have an actor for the Phantom who was trans, who lived and breathed and did the performance beautifully, stunningly, than have some gimmicky fucking straight actor, cis actor, who thinks it's his time to do, like, rock out, power ballad the way through and do it kind of mediocrely.
Yeah, it's... I mean, I don't see how... This is the thing that I don't understand, is I don't know why people seem to equate gender identity or sexuality with ability. Because there are plenty of... I mean, there are plenty of great straight, and LGBT and cis actors of all types out there in the world. Mm-hmm. Like, there are great actors of all spectrums. But I don't see in any way how equating their sexuality or their gender identity to that acting makes any difference. A trans woman acting is no different from a woman acting. Mm-hmm. Like, it's you're still just a person on stage embodying the story that you're trying to tell. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. So on stage, it doesn't, like, say Mary Poppins was acted by a trans woman. That would not change anything for me. It's still Mary Poppins.
It's still Mary Poppins, because that's the magic of theatre. It's going into a different role.
Yeah.
That's what acting is. But it also brings back the controversy that had been brought about with Russell T Davies after his show It's a Sin was brought up, and he said that gay actors should play gay roles. And someone had come away with, straight people can give authenticity to that role. They can't, like, show what it's like to be this person, and they can't engender the qualities through their acting of what it's like to be this sort of person and slip into someone else's shoes as actors are meant to do. But then I sat there going, like, well, not really.
Yeah. Because
a straight actor has a very, very different view of what the gay experience actually is. I have no problem with straight actors playing in gay roles.
And vice versa.
Yeah, and vice versa, because a lot of gay actors have played in straight roles. Look at Rock Hudson and many of his classic roles.
I was about to say, just look at pretty much 90% of closeted straight people on the street. Yeah, not straight, gay people on the street.
Exactly. We are the masters of masking. We really are.
Yeah,
we can hide that shit very well.
You guys can fill straight roles way better than half the straight people can.
Mm-hmm. But no, it's like the nuance of it. Like, and I actually said this to the person who posted it, and I said, well, yeah, our way of seeing the world is incredibly different because a straight person has never had to live the life of a gay person, which means they have never had to walk down a street living in fear, thinking someone's going to jump them for who they are, and they don't have to worry about someone throwing something out of a moving car window and screaming faggot at them.
Yeah,
they don't actually have to worry about not trusting their own friends and family, which is even worse. Like, that is probably that was the worst thing that happened to me when I was struggling to come out. I had to relearn to trust people.
Yeah.
Every single potential person was dangerous to me if I told them. Yeah. Because I had no idea how they would react. A straight person doesn't have to go through that. They don't have to
Exactly. I mean, obviously, people of color and trauma victims aside, but as a generalization,
yeah, it's just like a straight person never has to say, hey, I've got something to tell you, please don't freak out, but I'm straight.
Yeah, you never have to do that. It's
you
just
never
assumed.
you never have to do that. And the way things are going now with certain communities, and like with the LGBT community, with the trans community and stuff like that, it's just a repetition of what was said during the 80s about gay rights.
Yeah, I just don't agree with it. And I don't agree with it in the slightest. It's like, I mean, in my opinion, if you're an actor, it doesn't matter who you are. Mm-hmm. If you're an actor, voice acting makes this a million times easier. So, don't get me wrong, I have it way easier than many other actors. Mm-hmm. But acting, it's not your job to be you.
Exactly.
So who gives a fuck if you were born a guy or a girl or not? Who gives a damn if you've transitioned? Who gives a damn if you have a boyfriend or that?
If you have the ability to perform the role, that's the most important thing.
Yeah. You're not acting you, like you when you go out on stage. You're not acting Ryan. You're acting whomever the fuck you've been cast as.
Exactly.
And the same for everyone. Like, you don't go on, like, you don't look at, say, I'll take an example, Karen Gillan, for instance. Mm-hmm. You don't look at her as Nebula in Avengers and turn around and go, a brunette would have done this role much better. She bald. Who gives a fuck?
She bald and she blue.
Yeah. Who gives a crap if, she's... It's in my opinion, it is no different than, discriminating on a character that doesn't have hair on the actor's natural hair color. Like, it's the same equation if you're saying that trans people can't act X, Y, or Z. It's dumb.
It's just... I can't even bring myself to, think about it, mainly because it's just so fucking stupid. And, the entire idea of gatekeeping in roles, it's just unreal. And I'm just like, really? You're gatekeeping roles that other actors, like trans actors, trans men and women, who could do these roles fantastically.
Exactly.
And yet you're sat there just going no, they don't belong on stage. It's gimmicky, and I'm sat there just going
no, it's gimmicky to sit there and go, only a straight man could act this woman great. That's gimmicky.
I know, and it's a case of just well, who really needs to know?
Yeah, no one.
Who really needs...
It's no one's business.
I know, it's who really needs to know if this person is trans or not? Obviously just go we've had, the first trans phantom. That is a win.
That is amazing.
That is a win, and you have no idea how many trans people could look at that person and say that is the role model. That's what that's what inspired these young trans people to
go
get
into
that sort of stuff. And I'm sat there going like, you have no idea the amount of win that gives people. You have no idea the amount of hope, the amount of praise, the amount of joy that brings people to see someone on the stage. Because like look at Lucy St. Louis, who is now currently Christine Daye. She's the first woman of colour to ever play Christine Daye in the Phantom of the Opera, and she is amazing. And she literally said in one of her interviews, growing up, I didn't see many people. Actually, I didn't see anyone on the stage who looked like me. And I'm sat there just going like, this is the perfect time for change, because we can't gatekeep this. Like they've already had a person of colour play the Phantom. Norm Lewis, oh my god, his voice was amazing. He was fantastic, and he played alongside Sierra Boggess in the Broadway version, and she's my favourite Christine. I absolutely adore her. But it's the fact of it's not gimmicky in any form of way, because this inspires people. This brings more people to the theatre. And it's just I'm sat here just going like, this is a man who's got all the money he could ever want. He doesn't even give a shit about what's going on in his theatres. And it's like, you are someone of the same community gatekeeping on these roles, and I'm sat going like, I am sorry, that is in no way your job.
That's not acceptable either. I mean, taking into account as well, if you're even looking at it from the, but what will the public think? You know what the public's going to think? The public's going to think the same thing it always thinks when it watches movies or plays. They don't give a shit.
They really don't.
Unfortunately, and it is the pain of being an actor, it is a minority of people that actually care about who is the actor in X, Y, or Z. Like, you know, I mean, I have my, you know, I'm waist deep in animation half the time. So with me, it's people like Jonah Scott, but fucking hero voice actor of mine, like just plays Legoshi in Beastars.
Yes,
he's amazing.
We'd watched a compilation last time, and I'm sat here just going like, what is going on?
He's amazing. And the voice actor, I can't remember your name, I'm sorry, but the voice actor of Cherry Blossom from Skate, he's again another sweetheart in that. But like Matt Mercer, I could pick his voice out like that. Same with Laura Bailey and Travis Willingham. I could just done in any animation that they've ever been in. But not a lot of people can. And that's fine, because you're not watching that character. Like, you're not watching Phantom of the Opera thinking, oh yeah, no, I'm watching this for the actor. You're not watching a Lion King and looking at Mufasa and going, yes, James Earl Jones, fall off the cliff. You're going, yes, Mufasa, fall off the cliff.
Yeah,
I'm a Scar fanboy, guys.
Be prepared.
But yeah, you're not looking at that and thinking James Earl Jones. You're not looking at...
Like, only actors would be thinking that. People who are interested in that sort of thing, they will be thinking at, like, me, for instance. I'm a huge theatre fan. And when I watched Phantom a few weeks ago, when I was here, we all watched it. It was Ramin Karimloo playing the Phantom, Hadley Fraser as Raoul, and it was Sierra Boggess as Christine. And fun fact, the guy playing Ubaldo Piangi is the Go Compare man.
He is, isn't he?
It is.
Fabulous opera singer.
And they do really well. Like, I know that because I'm into that sort of thing, and I follow people's voices. I follow their careers.
But the general public don't. They look at the characters.
They look at the characters, and they want the voice rather than who the actor is.
Exactly. So the only person that it matters to that someone is trans are other trans wannabe actors, the kind of people that you know, if you had a trans Phantom, for instance, tons of trans people are going to look at that and go, that could be me one day.
Exactly. That is, I don't understand how Cameron Mackintosh can't see just how inspiring and life-changing that can be.
Or like, fucking a trans Javert. Like,
I can see that.
It's all kinds of things of, who the hell cares if they're trans, other than other trans people and LGBT people that look at them as a symbol of, I might be able to act that role one day.
Yeah,
because anyone going and watching, anyone going and watching is just caring that that's Javert or the Phantom, or they don't care who's behind the act. They just care about the act.
It's like having...
So don't fucking gatekeep roles.
Because like having a trans woman as Mary Poppins, or having a trans woman as like Fantine or Eponine or Cosette in Les Mis. Oh my god. Like, I think having trans actors involved in films on the stage and TV, it is inspiring because it helps. Like, look at Laverne Cox, who's probably one of the best modern trans actresses I have ever seen. I loved her in Orange is the New Black. I loved her in the revamp of Rocky Horror Picture Show. She was fantastic.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Unfortunately, no one will ever beat Tim Curry, but still.
Oh gosh, no. But then again, Tim Curry got to be in that role. He was the criminologist, and it was like couldn't...
I love that they brought him back.
Yeah, you couldn't do that without Tim Curry.
But at the same time, it's a point. If you're not comparing them because, they're trans, it's not the same. It's literally just they're not Tim Curry. That's all I thought when I was watching it. It wasn't you're trans. It was you're not Tim Curry. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, I feel that's an understandable thing to look at and go, I don't like you in that role as much as I liked this person. That doesn't mean that you're bad at the role.
No.
And that doesn't mean it should be gatekept for a dumbass reason.
I know, but it's personal preference.
Yeah,
like,
and
I much prefer Sierra Boggess to Sarah Brightman in their role of Christine.
And they're all completely understandable. But at the same time, we're judging them off of comparisons in performance. Don't give a damn. Like, both of us aren't even looking at them as if it's whether they're trans or LGBT that we're looking at.
It's characters.
Yeah.
We're looking at characters and their ability to perform.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing. It's the ability to perform, and it's the ability to carry a note.
Yeah.
Because, like, not gonna lie, if a trans woman, and I have no doubt that she could,
undoubtedly
can hit that high note in Phantom of the Opera. Like, we all know that. Like, oh god, yeah. It's like, because these people train and train and train, and only for someone, the superstar producer who put all these shows on stage, to tell them that they're not viable, that their presence damages the integrity of classic shows. It's bullshit.
Yeah, it's I completely disagree with it, in all honesty. Like,
I know.
I agree with you. I completely disagree with the situation.
I know. I'm
dumb.
I'm just like, it's like, this is the reason why we can't have nice things.
This is the reason, and it's not because you shouldn't have nice things. It's because people are being pricks. Unfortunately, it comes down to he's being a prick because he can.
Exactly.
There's no reason behind it. Let's be honest.
It's not even. It's the fact that he's being a prick. He's got all the money. He's also a gay man with a husband. He is of our community, and he should know what it's like. Exactly. He is taking away opportunities that once upon a time he would never have had.
Yeah. So he should be fighting for more people to have these opportunities, not less.
Exactly.
Oh. But yes, onto a more worn out note as well. You were wanting to talk about, and actually I was going to bring it up as well, creative fatigue. Or not creative fatigue, but burnout. That's the word.
Yeah, creative burnout. Yeah, no, it's become more prevalent to me, actually, that I become burnt out quite easily, mainly because I take on far too many projects. And like, the ideas are fine, it's just more being able to sit down, focusing on a project and getting it finished. That's what I'm struggling with, mainly because I'm so burnt out. Like, the ideas that come and stuff like that, I'm sat there just going, I'm just far too tired to be able to sit down. Like, I will start fine, starting a book is fine, getting it finished, being consistent with it, mainly because like, I'm not a writer who thinks of inspiration will carry me through. It's more like Octavia E. Butler had said, habit is more reliable than inspiration. And it's completely true. Like Ray Bradbury, he said, write every day. Yeah. Write write every day, even when you don't want to write. You've got to write, because having a routine and dedicating yourself to that routine, getting stuff down, that is the most important thing.
Richard Williams always said the same about animation.
Yeah, I think it was Anthony Trollope, actually. He was a classic novelist. He was a contemporary of Charles Dickens and Wilkie Collins and stuff like that. Okay. I think you may have heard of some of his stories, like Barchester Towers, The Warden, or Can You Forgive Her?
Can You Forgive Her, I've heard of.
Yeah, or what was it, Dr. Thorne?
Dr. Thorne,
Dr. Thorne became a classic adaptation on the BBC, I think. A few years ago, yeah. But no, that's Anthony Trollope. It's one of his Barchester. It's one of his Barsetshire Chronicles. And he said that he wrote 2,000 words a day. Even if he finished a novel within that time frame, he then started the next novel.
That makes sense. Like it keeps you going. It's about getting into a routine, and if you do it regularly. I mean, Cecil, trying to remember his real name because he acts a character called Cecil. I think Cecil Baldwin is his real name. Cecil Palmer is his character. But he's a voiceover artist. And he was saying that when it comes to doing this kind of thing, any kind of creative job, whether it's voiceover, writing, art, it's all about the idea that when you come home from work, like when you come home from your day job, that's when work begins.
Yes.
You sit down and you start writing, you start talking, you do whatever it is that you do. And you express, and inspiration will get a story going, but you're right, habit is what gets it finished.
It's like
but it's so easy to get tired.
It really, especially now, like the last 18 months, now nearly 20 months actually. It's become incredibly fatiguing just having to sit down and think, because we've now got all these extra worries. Like we've got money, we've got whether we're about to become ill, and being around people. Like usually being around people inspired me a great deal. Now I can't stand to be around people.
I've got the issue of, as a director, I need film crews and that sometimes, or I need animation teams, and that involves like meeting people, and it's terrifying now. And as well, on top of it, like you said, with money and that, like in the UK for instance, they were giving people who were on benefits £20 extra relief over the COVID period, and
that's stopping now.
They're getting rid of that, which I think is barbaric to an extent, because I mean there are people that I hear so many people a lot being like, oh, people on benefits are just mooching, and it's like, no, some of them cannot do a regular job,
and some of them are doing a regular job. Most of them are,
and it doesn't pay enough.
It doesn't,
and it's insane. Like, I mean, take a look at us, for instance. We're both creatives in that. How long do we go either having to work part-time jobs or being on benefits between each project that we get paid for?
Most of the time.
Like we spend more time not getting paid than we do getting paid. And sure, when we get paid, it's great, but at the same time, like money doesn't make money. You have to keep going. And it can take years to get your next paycheck. So we need that in between relief, and I feel it's insane that that's getting cut, and that can cause a lot of creative burnout as well, because on your mind is, am I going to be able to pay the bills? Is this project actually going to, am I going to get taken in by studio for this project? Is my book going to be good enough to be published? Exactly. X, Y, Z.
Well, see, that's what I've been feeling more often than not, is what is worth saying right now. Because regardless, I had that lovely review on Amazon today. I woke up to that, and it was a great review, and
it's an accurate review,
and I'm very grateful for it. It's a fact of, people are reading it, people are enjoying it, and that's what I want to be a writer for, because I want to tell stories that people enjoy, that people really feel. It's also a case of, I'm sat down at my desk more often than not, knowing I can do this, but whether or not it's all these stories,
is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Because there's always that great uncertainty. I've cut all novel ideas right now. They're still on my laptop. I'm just not wanting to go forward with them. So what I'm wanting to do right now is focus on short stories, long short stories, so like novellas and novelettes and stuff like that. So like long short stories and stuff like that, and blend them all together and have them as like the start of like my fantasy world.
I like that.
That I want to do, and it's just a case of, I think it's more manageable because a short story is much easier to get done. Though they're a lot harder to do, they're very difficult because you have to be very economic. But the novella is probably my favorite form of writing, mainly because I can stop at a decent length. I don't have to say as much as a novel does, but I can say enough perfectly. But it's also a case of,
that's why I like doing TV series.
And it's also a case of, well, with the novella, the problem is the market for the short story is abysmal.
Yeah?
Right. Oh, yeah. Like, no one actually really gives a shit about short stories.
I don't read enough to know, so...
No one actually gives a toss about short stories anymore. The market for the short story is exceedingly grim, whereas it's always just like, oh, but a novel will always show off your creative powers more succinctly, and I'm sat there going like, well, it's both true and at the same time no, because when you have a short story, you can show your ability, your skill, but also having the economy of your words and how well you tell the story within that economy. Because with a short story, you have to be able to tell within a very few thousand words a complete story. Like,
But with a novel, you can just keep expanding it if it's not quite enough.
Basically. Like, I think Neil Gaiman, actually, perfect example.
Very good example.
Yeah, his novel, The Ocean at the End of the Lane, it started off as a short story, and it continues on, I think, for about 50,000 words, 45 to 50,000 words. And, however, it never loses that economy. It's still written as if it's a very long short story, which I think in some ways kind of brings the novel down, but at the same time it works very well because it shows you that economy of style, and it works very well because Neil Gaiman, like, if you read some of his pavement slab books like American Gods or Neverwhere and stuff like that, and Nancy Boys, which also is actually being made into a series. I'm very excited about it. Yes,
I'm just looking forward to Sandman.
Oh, same. I'm looking forward to Audible's Act 2 for Sandman. I'm very looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to the TV series because I love their choice of actor for Death.
But no, Nancy Boys is being made into a TV series. Funnily enough, you know the guy who plays Anansi in American Gods? He's coming back.
Aye.
Yeah, because the director of American Gods kicked him off for some really stupid reason.
I mean...
It was unreal.
The fickle mind that is a director.
Oh no, I was angry, and Neil Gaiman wasn't happy about it either because he really liked the guy who plays Anansi.
Sorry, it was budgeting. But yeah, I feel like a massive issue, with the creative lifestyle in so many ways, and even like I say, creative lifestyle. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, content creation of any kind, I guess. Like you know, even gaming and that is you can get really burnt out doing anything, especially if what you love ends up becoming business. It can, the way that the modern world functions can really beat you down, and it can really make you feel just worn out, like you don't want to create anymore, because is what makes you happy gonna make you money begins to become a massive question. Even if you're doing what you love, are you really doing what you love? Kind of thing. Yeah.
See, for me, it's like there was, when I was growing up, and I still get it, because there was always the question of do I treat it as work or don't I? Because Neil Gaiman actually says as soon as something starts to feel like work, I stop. Whereas another writer I admire, Sarah Waters, who writes these fantastic historical novels and lesbian stories as well. They're fantastic, like Tipping the Velvet, The Night Watch, and stuff like that. Oh, is she the one that made Tipping the Velvet? Yeah, she wrote Tipping the Velvet. Oh, fantastic novel. I loved the show as well.
The show, I'm still needing to introduce my partner to the show.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But she always said, well, no, you have to treat writing like work. You have to turn up You have to clock in. You have to write. Even if it's like the most minimal amount of writing, you still turn up and you work because it is work. And that's how I do it. I turn up. I do it like it's work, but I clock in later in the day because I function better in the evening hours. I tend to write better in the evening hours, so I'm clocking in at like 6 o'clock, and then it hits like 8 o'clock. I'll have something to eat. I'll come back. I'll start writing, and I don't finish until about midnight, 1 o'clock.
Yeah. And everyone works on different timetables, and we've got the same in the animation community. We've got, like, Richard Williams was very a case of, if you're not working at it, and actually a lot of people, like, even the Disney kind of format of it is, no, it's work. You treat it like work. You get this production out. And two massive examples that I can actually, like, think of is Shizuo-san from Studio Polygon. I think that's his name. I can't quite remember. Forgive me if I just butchered your name. But either way, the creator of Polygon Studios, massive 3D studio and one of the oldest 3D studios in the world. He created it, and he came from the Japanese steel industry when it began to collapse, and managed to turn animation into a economic business. And if not for him, in a lot of ways, animation would not be the economic powerhouse that it is in Japan. He really did. He created the modern 3D pipeline in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of other people did have put in, but in my opinion, he was one of the pioneers of the way that it works. And, great job to him, because it was a case of, you treat animation like any other product. It is a production line. You do step 1, 2, 3, 4 onward. It is done. You move on. And that's great.
Yeah, another prime example, actually, of someone who not only suffers creative burnout, he keeps coming back. And he's also, like, to see him, how he's very, very self-conscious about the things he produces is Hayao Miyazaki.
Yeah, I was going to use him as my other example.
Yeah, it's just like...
he does it creatively.
He does it creatively, but it's also a case of he works... He puts himself under such duress to make his films, and he's always wondering, this film's going to be terrible, it's a bad film.
He is his worst critic.
He is his worst critic, and in that way he's also his own worst enemy, because he keeps on thinking that none of the work that he's doing right now is actually worth it. He continues to ask himself that question, but when it's finished,
some of it is... I mean, he's made some mistakes in that, but some of it is beautiful.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
But every creative has to have a few flops. Like, you're never...
I mean, look at Dickens.
Exactly.
His first 2 paving slab novels, I think it was like Barnaby Rudge and Martin Chuzzlewit, they were considered flops.
And that's okay. Like, every creator has their not as good ones. Yeah. But then you end up, if it's not for the bad ones...
You can never appreciate the good.
Yeah, you don't get ones like Howl's Moving Castle or Spirited Away.
And, like, look at Spirited Away. Prime example. It's one of the most beloved animated films of all time. And
it's only recently finally lost the top spot of the greatest animation of all time.
What's the new one?
My Hero Academia, I believe. Yeah.
I didn't know there was a film of that one.
There's a film of the series come out. I believe that's what overtook it. I know that Kimi no Namae translation is Your Name.
Your Name.
That came very close.
That came very close.
Got that on DVD if you want to watch it later. But
I think it's on Netflix and stuff.
I think it is, as well as there's a few others by the same creator, but that came very close, and that is a work of art. Wolf Children as well.
Like, Wolf Children is a beautiful, beautiful. It's so sad.
Passion projects, in my opinion, are as valid in the world as, like, production projects. And that, I mean, you can go through it like Studio Polygon or like the writer that you follow, where you can go through it as if it's production. You can just power through it like you're making steel or something, and that's valid. But that doesn't work for everyone. With others, it takes time, it takes love, and hell, fuck it. Taking Hiroyuki-san from Studio Trigger into account, sometimes you don't need time. You just need a whole lot of coffee and an insane idea. Because
again, like, from my point of view, someone, and we were talking about it before we recorded, Robert Louis Stevenson.
Yeah,
he wrote Jekyll and Hyde within 3 days of having a nightmare.
Yeah, see, prime example of sometimes all you need to do is just have a mental breakdown.
Exactly. And it's the fact of, this is like a 28,000 word novella, and he basically, over the next 3 days, while he's suffering from a lung condition, I believe it was TB or something like that, he's writing perhaps one of the greatest gothic nightmares that has ever been written.
Jekyll and Hyde is an outstanding one, and a great observation on human nature as well.
Exactly.
Especially considering how short a time it was written in. And that, yeah, but that's what it means. Everyone, in my opinion, and again, the problem with creative burnout, or where I believe creative burnout comes out from, is it comes out from the idea that we have to prove that we're able to do this in the same function as we could work in Primark or whatever. Basically. And we can't. No two creatives are the same.
No.
And so just, in my opinion, we need government help or whatnot, but we need to be able to find a place that we as creatives sit in an area that we can work the way that works best for us.
Yeah.
And that means also having the space to make mistakes.
It's also a case of, we have to be wary of ourselves becoming commodities.
Yeah.
Like, a big thing actually in the writing community is, it's actually fantasy and sci-fi. Fantasy and sci-fi have essentially become like this sausage machine, essentially, where there's like about 20 new titles every year. And I'm sat here just going like, well, that's great. People will enjoy these books, but at the same time, you also have to consider, what is their quality? What is the quality of the writing? It's kind of like it's almost like you're watching fantasy and science fiction turn into the Mills and Boon sort of thing.
An example that I heard from someone in the gaming community actually was the Call of Duty effect.
Yeah.
Where they start cranking out, companies and that try to crank out so much of something.
Yeah.
Like
but then again,
they would
it's
with
the
Cologne.
same thing every time.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. And it begins to dilute and lose what made it special in the beginning. And fashion, in my opinion, is a prime example of that. Like, where now we have so much of the same thing in that. Like, we'll take Levi's, for instance. They were the leading brand in denim. And, like, I'm talking, like, worker jackets, denim blazers, jeans that, I mean, I still have a pair of jeans from Thomas.
Yeah.
That I got years ago.
And it's like, where are they now?
They're still here.
Are they still here? Oh, no, I just mean, like, that company.
Where's the... Yeah, and now, the only time that I've heard the brand Levi's is printed over jersey hoodies.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not... What happened to being the cutting edge in a form of fashion? And I feel like it's no shade to Levi's. You need to move with the times. The problem is that the times have made it so that it's unprofitable to be unique. And I hate that, because in my opinion, like, you know, some unique styles are really needed. Like, I mean, you've seen me. I'm walking around in, you know, my hair tied up in, you know, like custom coats and that sort of thing. I mean, I've commissioned
like that lovely waistcoat you had.
Yeah, that, you know, that was completely custom job. It's literally called the Sweeney Todd cut.
Yeah.
Because it was made famous by the play. And that's, in my opinion, it's, you know, uniqueness is needed. I mean, I'd happily walk around in a enhoy, and I choked on my own tongue there, enhoy, and a yukata every day over here. But because it's the West, it, you know, I'd undoubtedly get the shit kicked out of me for it. But I feel like unique, like companies, things like Levi's or Armani still, in a way, keep to what they're good at. They still keep to suits, and they do suits well.
They do.
But I feel like companies need to stop selling clothes and start selling styles again.
Yeah.
Like, Primark is great for getting your basics, but at the same time, how many of the same basics do you need? Like, why band tops, for instance? Why the hell are you selling band tops? Band tops, in my opinion, should really be sold by the bands on websites or at events. You shouldn't just reprint the same band top 40 times in, you know, bloody Primark.
But no, it's like, most expensive shirt I got, it was merch. And it was from HMV, and it was a Jurassic Park shirt.
See? But at the same time, that's merch that goes towards a unique creator. Well, your plain black top from
whereas
Primark
and stuff like that, that's just, that again, like I was saying with the fiction, it's
Sausage
the sausage
factory.
Machine.
Yeah.
It's just the sausage machine, and they're just cranking it out. And I think there was actually a case not that long ago.
I'm really ripping on Primark here. Sorry, anyone that works here.
Yeah, but no, there was a case not that long ago, and it was a unique designer who'd put a patent on one of their designs. And I think it was Primark or New Look stole the design.
No surprise.
And the creator tried to take them to court, but it was just like, oh, there's no proof, and it was like, and she had to go through an entire process to try and prove, no, this is my actual authentic work. And in lieu of doing this, New Look or Primark, whichever
fashion company, whatever,
tweaked the design ever so slightly so they couldn't be brought to court.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh no, it's not the same. And it's just like, oh, you cheeky bastards.
But it happens a lot. But then you get companies like Nike, for instance, suing Lil Nas X and I can't remember his name, but he redesigns shoes. He was famous for a while for making the Jesus shoes, where he redesigned Nikes to have holy water in the air pocket.
Yeah, was there not also like blood?
Yeah,
there was a design with the blood
that's
shoes.
That's the one that they were sued for. Is the Satan shoes to go for the opposite, the Jesus shoes. And it's that issue of big companies are allowed to sue independent people, but independent people just have to let their stuff be stolen and turned into the sausage factory.
Basically.
And I hate that because it's a massive thing that I see whenever I'm down in London a lot. Is like companies, not even companies, but like vendors and that selling really cheap knockoffs of designs that have taken, artists, because I mean, let's admit it, fashion designers are an artist. It's taken them years sometimes to design this, and then someone's just gone and taken the same shape and used cheaper materials, and they're selling 20 times more because it's a quarter of the price.
Mm-hmm. And most of the time, whenever a designer takes on the artist is hardly ever paid.
Yeah, and it's really
and they're
sad.
Hardly ever credited.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I have my disagreements with Disney as a company, but at the same time, Cruella in the new movie, they point that out, and they point that out great. The fact that there's so much a fashion artist will not be recognized for their work if they're under a label. And it's a huge thing that happens with a lot of companies, is this, I remember getting taught it in, I can't remember which job it was, but I would sketch as a way of coping with the stress of it. And I remember my employer pointing out that, because you're on company time, because I was sketching in between phone calls or something. And yeah, it was your own company time. So any money that you would make off of this art, we're allowed instead. And that is legally how it works. If you make anything, and in a lot of cases, if you're a designer, if you make anything even off of, quote, company time, anything the company you work for owns it. And it's, in my opinion, that's not fair on artists and creatives that want to kick out and want to make it on their own and want to be known as themselves, or just have their art go out there. I feel like there needs to be more protections put in place for independent artists.
Definitely.
But at the same time, groups and companies as well, like in the creative industries in a lot of ways, need help in a lot of ways to avoid things like creative burnout, because it's getting easier and easier to get burnt out because we're trying to force everyone into this pigeonhole of the 9-to-5 workday, even with creatives. I mean, my younger brother, for instance, I mean, geez, creativity would strike him at the most random of times. I remember hearing that his girlfriend was incredibly irritated at him once because creativity hit him halfway through fun time in bed.
Oh no.
And I'm talking like full on just pushed her off of him and went, I gotta draw. Like, I mean, creativity hits at the weirdest fucking moment.
Creativity does hit, but if I were his other half, I would have smacked the shit out of him.
I
do not blame her for being angry.
I do not blame her for being angry at all. I could completely understand.
I know.
But yeah, my brother ended up with that situation. But that's a prime example of creativity hits at any time.
It really does. Like when I was working in Premiere In, I used to scribble on the back of my rota.
Yeah.
It was like what rooms I had to do, and anytime I got a spare moment or I thought of something, I just scribbled it down. And I would, and at the end of the shift, I would have to take a photo. And my manager was just like, "What have you done to this?" And I'm sat there going like, "Sorry, they're just ideas." So I used to take and my manager actually used to read over them, and like the next day if she was in and she was like, "I read over the stuff, that actually sounds like a really good idea." And it was great. But there was a fact of when I got home, because my shifts usually went from 10 o'clock to like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. It really depended on how busy we were. I was just far too tired to actually focus on anything. It became incredibly difficult for me to like focus. So I just sat there going like, I would get in, I would shower, I would get changed, but then I would just collapse on my bed and just be like, I'm done for the day.
Yeah, which is where making a habit out of always doing it comes in good. But at the same time, I mean, that's a prime example of, I remember one of my teachers, Erin, once taught me, always take napkins with you.
Yes.
Which, because if you're an artist, you've got a habit of scribbling on things like napkins and that when ideas hit you. And so always take them with you. It's that issue of, creativity comes at random times. And if you're working another job, or especially if you're working on a project that just is someone else's project in a lot of ways, because in creativity, I mean, let's admit it, if we're working as a team, 90% of the time, it's not our idea that we're working on. We feel we're dead and burnt out by the time we get home. We don't have time for our own stuff. Yeah. And it kind of sucks. And even if we're trying to do our own stuff, if, again, we're worried about whether it's worth the money, like whether we're going to be able to eat tomorrow with this project, we lose the love for it.
Yeah, and no doubt there's going to be people out there that are just like, oh, you just need to get it done. You need to get it done. Why are you complaining? And I'm sat there just going like, it's not the fact of
we're complaining. This podcast is.
Yeah, we're all we do is complain. But it's not the fact of, we're not complaining of the fact of there's so much to do. It's more the fact of...
the sheer amount of stuff. I mean, I love having so much to do.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I like being busy. I like doing this sort of thing. It's just more a case of... there are times when you're just hit with a whole wad of, is it worth it?
Yeah.
And that's incredibly...
I'd rather be working on a million projects that I love and feel exhausted at the end of the day because I've done so much than feel exhausted because the one thing I've been working on, I've been freaking out as to whether I'm going to be able to eat because I love this project so much.
Basically, yeah. So like I said earlier on, all my novel ideas have just sort of gone to the back of my mind, and I want to take like 2 or 3 weeks off and then start with short stories, like connected short stories.
And that's
probably the better way because it's also great practice. For stuff like that. So like little animatics, like in the animation industry, animatics, that's great practice. Yeah. And then you'll get into the fluidity of animation, and then you'll start doing all that sort of thing. And that is great.
Yeah, it's like I've been retaking art lessons and that so that I can get better at drawing again, and then as I get better at drawing, I can start storyboarding, and then as I storyboard, I can animate, and it leads on, it bleeds through. Sometimes, I mean, Aaron, another great lesson from him, was always go back to basics. If you ever feel lost, go back to the beginning. And I feel like that's the best way, sometimes just going back to short stories or going back to just doodling pictures and that, it can really rebuild your love. Yeah,
and I think also the best way to get a real good kick out of something is when you're thinking something, if you have an idea, flip it. Flip it. When you're thinking of doing something, just do the exact opposite and see where that takes you.
That would
be
fascinating.
Every time you expect something to happen, absolutely flip it and go the exact other way. Because it either means like something surprising will happen or the tension is ramped up. So say you're writing a scene, someone's got a gun to the main character's head and the tension builds and then the gun goes down. Or the gun goes off by their ear and it deafens them in one ear, just that moment, like when the gun's gone down and then it's up again. Yeah. So it's like, there's going to be some oof, and then something shocks them. It's like flipping flipping things on their heads, turning it all inside out, that is actually a great way to keep yourself it's a great way to keep yourself interested in the project you're doing, because like
it's one of the reasons I love D&D is you know, I do this, dice roll says no, time to improvise.
Oh, see, that's also why I like fairy tales and rewriting fairy tales, because you have a framework that you can work in, and then
you can look at it from different perspectives.
You can, and it's also a case of you can turn that entire thing inside out, which I love doing. And
my one of the ones that I did that for was for college. I had done a spider. I did the spider and the fly. And of course, like, for a lot of people that have like read it and deconstructed it knows that basically it's a story about rape. It's a guy coercing a woman. So I decided to flip it, make it a woman seducing a guy to his death, like to kind of like, you know, flip it on his head. I know, the person judging that hated that I had turned it against men, but in my opinion, it works much better.
But that's the thing. It's also a case of, then again, men will go to any lengths
for
that sort of thing, and they will lead themselves into danger without knowing it, because
men be dumb.
Like,
I can say this as a man.
Yeah, the power of sex is hypnotic to men, and if they have any chance of getting any hole, they'll go for it.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And it's also a case of, I love the flip on that, because it's a case of she uses her power, and she does it very well, to then bring about doom. And it's like and the power dynamic is shifted. She is the one with the power. I love
the opposite power dynamic.
Yeah.
However, like I said, I know that a lot of men that have that watched that before it actually got taken down from YouTube. Explicit content. I remember it got taken down, but before that, so many men hated it. Because again, it flipped the power dynamic. It made them the vulnerable one.
I know, and it's like, there's nothing wrong in masculinity with being vulnerable. Being vulnerable proves that you're more of a man than like, big buff bodybuilding. I show no emotion.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is perhaps the greatest thing a man can do, because it shows that there is something, not just to work with, but something to
connect with.
Basically to connect with, because any person is looking for someone to connect with, and I find it incredibly telling. I find it grossly uncomfortable when some people say, isn't toxic masculinity just hot? And I'm sat there just going like,
no, it's not.
I'm grossly uncomfortable that you think that's hot.
I mean, I'm sure some people do think it's hot, but at the same time, each to their own. Like, you know, there are some people that, an issue that I had, I was bringing this up with my partner last night actually, was the fact that, like, I, for instance, kind of was raised in a house where, you know, a guy is a guy. That's how it is. A guy, you know, generally, you know, the only way to be a guy is to be the dominant one in the situation and that kind of thing. And I mean, you know, as a guy that always got, you know, I got bullied a lot. I got in fights. I always felt comfortable in the position of power. I grew up being taught what many guys in our generation, or as many generations are taught, is if you're a guy, it's your job to be in the position of power. Which, as a domino effect, means that women have to be in the position of submission. Which, that, in my opinion, is wrong on so many levels anyway, because, you know, women are allowed to be powerful too. And as well, I've noticed, it causes some seriously intrapersonal issues with a lot of men.
It does. Because
say they aren't the kind of guy that is dominant. Say they're not the kind of guy that even wants to be dominant. They feel like, oh no, if I'm not dominant, what am I?
I'm emasculated or something.
Yeah, and it's like you can be a man and you can be not the dominant one in the situation. You don't always have to be the biggest man in the room. You don't always have to be the smartest man in the room. And trust me, you don't always have to be the one on top.
Exactly. We bottoms know best.
Yeah.
But no,
I'm straight and I know that.
Oh god, yeah. But then again, what's even better, and I fucking love them, power bottoms. Power bottoms are hysterical, and I fucking love them.
That's the point, is you can be dominant and be in the submissive
in
position.
a submissive thing. It's like sort of it's also that sort of thing. And Lil Nas X actually talked about it when someone asked if they're a power bottom, and they started talking shit about it, and it was a case of you really just don't like seeing someone who in a role that's seen as submissive in a role of power.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I mean, live that fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're allowed to be, you know, I mean, I feel like it's a massive thing that a lot of people get mixed up with, you know, when they fantasize or fetishize or try and display the idea of like the BDSM or the kink community is the idea that, yeah, no, the dominant one's in charge. And, haha. No, that's not how it works. The sub is always the one in charge, not because they're, you know, giving commands or that, but because the second they say stop, you stop.
And it's like, never ever believe what E.L. James writes in 50 Shades of Grey, because that is not a BDSM relationship. That's abuse. That is abuse. And it's like, oh yeah, and some people are excusing it because, oh yeah, but she signed a contract. That is no excuse whatsoever.
The second a safe word is said, that's it.
It does not matter if it ruins your orgasm or anything like that. The moment they say stop or they say the safe word,
you stop.
You damn well stop. And the comforting begins. That's also what the 50 Shades books do not talk about. It's the fact of after BDSM occurs, you start comforting your partner. You look after them. You help them heal.
On both sides as well.
Exactly.
I feel like it's a very underrated or underlooked at thing is a dom drop. A lot of people I've noticed don't even know that it's a thing. They don't know that, a lot of doms can get quite depressed afterwards.
Yeah.
And even subs can feel like, especially again, like say, you know, if they're in the position of a lot of dominance normally, if they go in the situation where they're submissive, there's a lot of shame afterwards. You can feel a lot of shame. So both the sub and the dom need time and comfort together to kind of rebalance and sort of be like, okay, I'm not a horrible person for what I did because, you know, you literally asked for it or whatever. And the sub's like, I'm not a horrible person for letting you have control or that, or things like that. It's both sides.
It's
need
an equal
comfort
dynamic.
And care. Yeah, because it is. It's a bit.
Well, it has to be.
Yeah. You have to have trust.
Definitely.
And that's something that I know that a lot of media never shows. That goes the idea that
goes for every relationship. That goes for every relationship, not just BDSM, but like polyamory, monogamy, all that sort of stuff. Trust is at the center of every relationship. It has to be.
Yeah, I think that's a massive thing as well. Is it's the idea like I mean I know that obviously a lot of people are confused by polyamory and that, and like I'm in a monogamous relationship and that, so I will never understand like polyamory to the same extent that you, as someone that, you know,
who is polyamorous,
has. But at the same time, I understand that sitting there and being like, how can you trust the people that, you know, like if you're sleeping with several people on that, how can you trust that? It's no different from asking a monogamous relationship, how can you trust your partner won't cheat on you? It's the same. It's trust.
Well, with polyamory, being in an open relationship, you talk.
Yeah,
you are.
It's about communication.
It is about communication, and through that communication, you trust.
Yeah,
because like I have always like trying to explain my being polyamory to people. It's very tiring because it's a case of the moment I'm like 2 sentences into my explanation, they're like, oh, but I don't understand. And I'm sat there just going like, why don't you shut the fuck up and let me finish?
Yeah.
Then you might understand. Yeah.
And even if you don't need to understand it.
No, it's just respect. It is basically all about respect.
Yeah, like again, I will never, like, I don't feel the same way about people that you do.
And that's
okay.
Fine.
That does not change our dynamic in any way.
Being polyamorous, being monogamous, either side has their perks. Either side has their toxicities, and that is totally fine. It's working through that, and it's also genuinely just not being a toxic person.
Yeah, I feel
that's
like
what makes them work.
That's the common thing with both. Yeah, it doesn't matter whether you're poly or monogamous. It's all about being able to talk through your issues if something's missing in the relationship, or if something's too much in the relationship, or whatever. It's the ability to talk to your partner or to gain that trust and stay as a strong relationship.
Yeah, see, like for me, I could never do monogamy because I've experienced toxic monogamy, and I know that's not for me.
It can be very possessive.
It is, but that's not to say monogamy itself is a bad thing. No. But there's also toxic polyamory, which I've also experienced.
Yeah.
And I can understand why some people would be like, that is not for me. I would much rather stick to my guns with the one person. Yeah. And I'm like, you
Each
go for it. Be happy with that.
Yeah.
And if that makes you happy, you go for it. You cherish them. Like, you should cherish your partner or your partners anyway.
Yeah, or even friends and that. Like, you know,
exactly.
Can't remember the name for it.
Friends with benefits?
No. I mean, I've had plenty of those, but kind of relationship that doesn't have sex.
Platonic.
Thank you. Even platonic relationships require a level of trust in that. It's all about communication. It's all about trust, and it's all about understanding. So, like, you know, if your friend, partner, or whatever, like, you know, say your best friend of 20 years, for instance, comes out as gay,
you're there.
You're there.
Like, you are there.
You listen to them, and you even if you don't understand it, that doesn't mean that you can't stand by them.
Exactly. Like, you sit there, you let them literally spill their guts to you. Yeah. You give them a cuddle, you fucking make them a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, you give them a slice of cake or something like that. You make sure that you are the person that they can talk to, no matter what they are going through.
Yeah, people should be allowed to communicate, and it comes, you know, the same in, you know, even in straight relationships. Like, take a straight monogamous relationship, your partner comes to you, and I'm gonna go for an extreme here and goes, I want to be pegged. I had to think of the most, like, kind of dynamic changing thing on there. You sit there and you talk over, both of you talk over your why, you know, yeses and nos, your pros and cons, and you come to an agreement of some kind. And I love that you're giving me a look of suspicion right now.
No, it's just more a case of I'm just remembering that scene from episode 6 of Hell of a Boss.
Yeah,
it's like, that's
exactly where my mind went.
I'm just like, does Millie peg you? Sometimes. And the face he made, Moxie
I
made,
love
I was
that
like,
look. Oh,
I thought that was hysterical.
That's why my mind went there, was I was thinking of Moxie and Millie.
And I also just think of that little meme. It's like a happy man and the woman who pegs him. That is entirely because the dynamic has changed because...
But it's still about communication.
It very much is.
And openness. And that's...
I love how we've gone from creative burnout to talking about pegging.
I know, right? That's I love the meandering of this podcast.
I love it. I absolutely adore it.
But yeah, it's all the same thing. It's a case of it's talking, it's trust, and it's understanding. And I the same sort of thing bleeds through into, and here comes the big crux. What side of anything you vote for? You don't have to agree politically to be friends. You just have to understand that everyone has a side. I mean, I've got plenty of friends that are the opposite to me politically. I think even me and you are opposite politically in some cases.
I'm socialist.
Yeah,
I'm socialist. I'm one of those people. I'm very much a case of things need to fucking change because current government is not working.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an idealist, but like I'll bring the massive crux in because I know I probably voted opposite to you. Brexit.
Yeah, I voted to remain.
Yeah, I didn't. But I voted to leave the EU. But we both had different reasons to do it, and I'm sure that both of us had understandable.
You had a creative reason.
Yeah, I had a reason of there were some laws that I was worried were going to come into the EU at the time that would jeopardize things like net neutrality and creative copyright freedom. I need to double check. I don't know if they ever did in the end, but the worry that it could happen, even if it didn't, was there.
That is understandable as a creator, as an artistic creator.
But at the same time, things like human rights and that were also a reason to try and stay. And there was so much to both sides.
And also the quality of life lived in Britain, because by EU law, we had to maintain a certain standard in our food production.
Yeah. And thankfully, Scotland writ a lot of EU laws into its laws just after the Brexit vote went through. So very smart move, guys. But yeah, like I said, we sit on opposite sides on that. That doesn't mean that we can't look at each other's opinions and go, yeah, okay, I agree here, I disagree here, but cool. Mm-hmm. You know, I can sit here now and go, oh, fuck, this is a circus.
Yeah, but no, it's like, you can be friends with those of polarized opinion. It's more a case of, I could probably not be friends with you if you were like if you were abjectly against human decency.
Yeah,
that's where the problem is. But then again, when I think of something like that, I just think of P.D. James and Ruth Rendell. They were on opposite sides. P.D. James was a baroness for the Conservative side, and Ruth Rendell was for Labour. And they were both in the House of Lords on opposite sides, and they were best mates.
And that's the point. Is you can be friends with people of different political views. There's nothing stopping you guys from anyone getting along, as long as you sit there and you understand each other, have different points of view. You're both human. And at the same time as well, a massive crux of it is people can change their minds.
People can change their minds.
And people do change. People, like, you'll start a relationship and, I don't know, like 8 years down the line,
you will be totally different people.
Maybe you'll want to try out a slightly different power dynamic. Maybe you'll, maybe, I don't know, you've decided that, you don't want to be a chef anymore. You want to be, a banker. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind and evolving as a person, as long as you're evolving for the better.
Yeah, or like a more contemporary view on it. Like, used to be a party animal, but now, like 8 years down the line in a relationship, you just find partying's just not for you.
Yeah, and or vice versa. Maybe you've decided that, you never got to party when you were younger, so you want to do it now.
Yeah.
And people change, people evolve. In multiple ways, people evolve, and it's all about understanding and communicating that evolution with the people closest to you, and understanding the ones that are trying to communicate with you, and always try to find a balance, because I feel like care and balance and trying to remove gatekeeping and toxicity and the idea that, well, this is how it is, so it has to stay, is dumb.
And I think that's actually a perfect way to round off this episode, that end message. Oh, that was a roller coaster ride, this episode.
I know, it went from trans actors to creative burnout to pegging. Oh. Quite the journey this podcast
Quite the journey, but a fantastic one, as they always are.
Yes, but nonetheless, you guys shall once again hear us next week.
Absolutely. See y'all there.
Yes, and take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone.